What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Blazers Uprise Live Mock Off Season Edition. I like putting Mock Off Season in the thumbnail so you guys know what this is about. This is about the Mock Off Season. We're going to talk about some more of the trades that have been done. Things got a little bit crazy. I assume if you're not, keeping pace with our Mock Off Season, I assume you kind of know, based off the thumbnail, what some of the trades were. We had some interesting stuff go down, and we're going to talk about it. First, we'll talk about some general topics for like 5 or 10 minutes. The Blazers' new sponsor patch. The Milwaukee Bucks are one game away from the finals. I think there was something
The Suns are in the finals.
The Suns are in the finals, so congrats to Gabe if he's still in here. Congrats to the Valley Pod and those guys on them making the finals. That's crazy, man. It's crazy that you're going to have the Suns, Bucks, or Hawks win the championship. So I've enjoyed the parity this year, even though it kind of came with some injuries. Unfortunately, that's another thing we can talk about a little bit is Giannis's injury and whatnot. We'll just lead off with that. First off, though, Eric, how's your day going?
Oh, not too bad. Mostly just hung out with the kids. It was nice enough to take the dog for a walk, so that's good. Not too hot,
your new
not
dog.
too hot on the pavement, like it has been. So yeah, very nice to have a cool day. I know yesterday was kind of cool too, but yeah, I thought the last couple of days were perfect weather compared to. I don't mind the hot too much, but yeah,
I've enjoyed the
too hot.
I've enjoyed the clouds. The clouds have been nice. The clouds have been a nice reprieve from the apocalypse that happened last weekend. Shout out to your mom. Hi to your mom.
Mom.
She says hi in chat, so just wanted to say hi to her. Also, sorry, the stream is going live a little bit later. My streaming software had to update, so I love getting all set up, then opening my streaming software, and yeah, it has to download 171 files to update, so I had to sit through that. So that's why we're live a little bit later, but appreciate you sticking with us and tuning in for the show. Eric, what do you want to talk about first? Do you have any preferences?
Yeah, something you didn't mention. Let's talk about we filled our first spot on our Summer League roster today.
Oh yeah, we with quite
the most
name,
random news ever. Shams was on one today. Like every tweet he had was just like the most random, like out of place tweet. Like what are you digging for today, Shams?
I know, and here's the thing: is like there was no Summer League announcements until this one, so it was like the very first one, and it was. Quote, 11-year NBA veteran Michael Beasley has agreed to play with the Portland Trail Blazers at Las Vegas Summer League in August, sources tell The Athletic and Stadium. I mean, that'll be entertaining. I don't think I really want him on the actual team, but for Summer League basketball, he'll be fun to watch. I feel like he could put up 20 a game in the Summer League. I don't know if they're going to have a championship like they've had in Summer League Pass. Obviously, things are kind of different this offseason being a little bit later, but if so, I mean, I'd like this signing in terms of trying to contend for a Summer League championship.
I think they're having a normal Summer League. All 30 teams are supposed to be there. Yeah, so initially I was like, man, that kind of sucks because, like, I don't know. We've talked about in the past about Olshey not really working around the edges very well, other than the Moses Brown and Jalen Horde year. I don't think he's used his two ways well. So I was hoping to get a lot of players that would qualify for that. But then the more I thought about it, there's still like 10 other spots they can give to people, and I'm assuming only Ellaby and possibly Blevins from the current roster would be on the team anyway. We have no draft picks, so it's like, what the hell? Might as well just like throw him out there, I guess. He doesn't have to play that much. Yeah. Who knows if he'll play? But then between the draft and the Summer League, it's possible we could fill our two-way spots and have them on the team anyway. Could trade for a second-round pick. So all those guys would get time, whether Beasley's on the team or not. So I don't think it's like a huge negative factor that he's going to take away time from anyone. But just kind of a funny name to bring up, and us to have him on the team is kind of interesting.
Yeah, Yeah, it'll be fun. Here's the thing. There's going to be a lot of good undrafted players that would have been maybe a mid-second round in previous drafts, because this draft is extremely deep. So I do want us to try and land a couple undrafted rookies that can turn into something. Other teams do that all the time. We've never really done that. I don't think Olshey's ever done that as Trailblazer GM. Find an undrafted rookie, and he turns into a player who is able to contribute to the team. I mean, you look at Fred Van Vliet, you look at like even an overseas guy like a Joe Ingles or a Maxi Kleber. There's a number of undrafted guys around the league. Lou Dort is a guy that I wanted us to sign after the Nasir Little draft. He went undrafted, and look at what he's become. There's a number of guys out there. I'm kind of blanking on some names, but there's a number of guys out there across the NBA on many different teams that were undrafted. The team picked them up, and they developed into a serviceable player. We've never really done that. So that's been like one of my biggest critiques with Olshey is he doesn't work around the fringes well enough to sort of get those guys. The thing is, if you're able to get those guys, it doesn't cost an asset. They might be able to fill into the rotation in the future, which might allow you to trade a more valuable player or a higher commodity asset and help you consolidate some of your depth for higher tier talent. So that's something that I want going into Summer League is I want at least 3 guys that were undrafted. And after the draft, I will definitely have some targets that I want us to pick up because this draft is extremely deep. There's going to be some good players. Mm-hmm. So I do want to, even though we don't have a draft pick, I think we might be able to land a good rookie. Maybe not good next year, but good enough down the line to be a role player. And I think we need to use Summer League that way. I don't think Michael Beasley really stops us from doing that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to fret about who we signed to the Summer League roster without a pick, you know.
Krish is asking if Nas is eligible. So technically, I'm pretty sure any player in the NBA is eligible. Like Damian could go play if he wanted to, but there's no reason for players to risk getting hurt or to play. I don't know. Nas is one of those guys I could see it either way. There was no Summer League last year, so he didn't have a chance to do it. But at the same time, I feel like he's going to, I don't know if they want to hide him necessarily, but I don't know if Summer League is really crucial for his development or anything. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem if he played or not, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he'll play or not.
Yeah.
I would basically like the only other one from our team.
Yeah, I would like to see Nas play and just try and be the guy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Now, Michael Beasley might interfere with that, you know, but that's the thing. If Nas doesn't play, then whatever. You don't have anybody that's really going to be the guy in Summer League or, you know, I don't know. But like a guy like Nas, it's like he has shown flashes of shot creation and playmaking ability. I would like to see him play in Summer League just to try and do that consistently against, obviously it's not NBA caliber talent, but it's close to it. You'll have some really good rookies playing in the Summer League that he'll be able to potentially go up against. I would like to see him work on that in a game setting and try and maybe build his confidence in those areas of his game through Summer League.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, so anyway, Michael Beasley is going to be on the Blazers Summer League team. We'll see what the roster looks like a month from now, probably.
Hal Cooper is asking who our Summer League coach is. We don't know yet. Usually it's an assistant of, our head coach, but
we don't have one.
We have seen like Jason Kidd, his first year coaching on the Nets. He actually coached their Summer League team too. And the funniest part about that was he actually answered his cell phone and went and took the call in the middle of a game during the Summer League. So
that's Jason Kidd for you. I think Chauncey might coach. I don't think he's going to answer his cell phone in the middle of the game. You know, He's not quite Jason Kidd.
He might
Chauncey a little more dedicated.
Like Gordon says, he might want to get hands on and use that as to just kind of learn some of the young guys and just practice coaching before the real thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. So the other topic was
I once played in in a rec league, and someone on my team did that same thing. They went and answered their cell phone that was ringing like in the middle of it.
I've had that happen too.
It's
Yeah,
like,
it's just
are
like,
you
bro.
serious right now?
Yeah.
It's so embarrassing for your whole team.
See, our rec league kind of subs on the fly, so it's not like a big deal if somebody does that. And we don't have refs, obviously, so a little different than your rec league, so it wouldn't be as weird in mine. But yeah, I pay no attention to the cell phone when I play, man. That's about the only time I don't.
Right.
So yeah, Michael Beasley. It'll be fun to watch him, I guess. So other than that, you got the Suns making the finals. Congrats to them. Chris Paul makes his first NBA Finals. Congrats to him. You also got the Bucks 1 game away. Giannis had an hyperextended knee. It sounded like it could have been a torn ACL or something extremely serious right after it happened, and it seems like it's not. It's the fact that they haven't said he's out for the season and he was just reported as being out for today's game makes me think maybe there's a chance he comes back. I'm not really sure. Did you have more insight into his status than I did? Or
no, Woj tweeted just uncertain timetable for return. But there was a Bucks reporter who said he was out for sure for the season, but I haven't seen anyone confirm that or not.
That guy, I don't know. The way I think I know what guy you're talking about, and the way he was tweeting wasn't really.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't know whether or not to believe him. So, I don't know. I mean, hopefully Giannis is able to come back for the finals, assuming they make it. They're up 3-2. They beat the Hawks earlier tonight. The Hawks were playing without Trae Young, so that's the thing. Is like, Giannis was hurt, but Trae Young was hurt. That kind of cancels out, so I think it was pretty fair. I just hope that whichever team makes it is able to get their star back for the finals. I think the Hawks would probably be able to get Trae Young back. For the Bucks with Giannis to be more up in the air. I think if the Hawks make the finals, I think the Suns win pretty handily. If the Bucks make the finals and don't have Giannis, I think the Suns win pretty handily. I think the only series that would be a 50-50 toss-up is the Bucks with Giannis against the Suns at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, yeah. The Bucks got some players, though. I mean, Chris Middleton had a huge game today. Brook Lopez had 33 points. They got Drew Holiday. So it's not like they don't got guys and they can still play defense. That's probably how they'd have to try and win a final series. I just hope this isn't a finals that's just after a great playoffs, in my opinion, is just ho-hum. The Suns are going against the Hawks, which I still they've gone on a run, but I still don't think they go on a run in the Western Conference. I think if they're in the Western Conference, they probably lose in the first round. And then the Bucks without Giannis, I just feel like that could be a ho-hum series that's just not entertaining whatsoever. I want an entertaining series, I want an entertaining series. I'm rooting for the Suns, but it'd also be pretty cool for the Bucks to win it. I mean, if the Bucks played the Suns, no offense to Saltiest and Gabe and those guys, but I wouldn't really have a heavy rooting interest because the Bucks are a small market that kept their star. Every super team was trying to recruit their star, and Giannis decided to stay in Milwaukee. So if he could win a championship there, I think that'd be pretty cool. I like Giannis. I like Chris Middleton as a player. So I've always kind of liked the Bucks. So if that's the series, I'm not going to be rooting too hard either way. Gabe says it wouldn't be fun if the Bucks won, though. Of course not. You're a Suns fan. I get that. I won't be in your stream trolling or anything like the fake Blazers Uprise account that got salty. Salty thought it was real. Now I'm modded over there for good reason, so they know. But, yeah, I mean, I'm hoping Giannis is able to return at some point, and I'm hoping for a Giannis versus Devin Booker, Chris Paul NBA Finals.
Yeah, I still don't know if I want Chris Paul to win a ring or not, but yeah, I have to root for the Suns because of those guys. But I also, if the Bucks happen to win without Giannis, that would be kind of crazy too. What would that say about Giannis?
Oh, I know. What would that say about the Suns and the Western Conference?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of narratives the Suns have just gotten by because every team is injured, yada, yada, yada. That could be the case in the finals if they go up against the Bucks and they all have Giannis, and you have people trying to downplay it. And I have two reactions to that. one, if the Bucks beat him without Giannis, then it's kind of like, okay, I mean, I think the Suns are for real, and I think there's no question about that, so I just don't see that happening. But if that happens, man, it's like maybe the East is better than we thought. Maybe the West, especially with some of the injuries in the West, maybe the West wasn't as good as we thought.
Yeah.
That could be a takeaway if that happens. I forgot my second takeaway. Oh well. I forgot the second thing I was going to say.
They win without Giannis. They don't need him anymore and can trade him to us, right?
Exactly. I mean, I'll take Giannis, man. I'd love Giannis, but
what did you think of the Pat Beverly push? Did you see that?
Yeah, I mean, not good, bad. Punk move. Dude apologized. I don't think it was a shove where like Chris Paul would have gotten hurt off of it.
I don't know. Like, that's dangerous when you're not expecting something. That's when you could.
I mean, it's a little dangerous, man. I mean, I don't know.
I just think.
I don't know. Like if somebody did that to Dame, I would be pissed beyond belief. You know what I mean? I'd be like cussing him out through the TV, all that. You know what I mean?
Well,
like he probably should be suspended for a game or two to start next season.
Yeah.
Is that even going to mean anything to him? Probably not. That's something I wouldn't do on the basketball court, but I also can understand the emotions getting the better of you, if that makes sense. And not necessarily doing something like that, but I don't know. It's not something where I don't know. I saw people basically acting like he should be banned from the league. I'm not on that wavelength.
I do think he should be suspended for at least 5 games next year for that.
I don't think 5.
See, here's
that's
the
what
thing.
You get suspended for throwing a punch. A shove in the back is not equal to a punch for me.
But it's not just that he shoved him. It's that it's a timeout and he went over to him. It's not if he shoves him in the course of a play or after a hard foul or something, he gets up and shoves him. That's completely different. But he had to go out of his way to go towards his bench to push him. I believe that is just as bad, if not worse, than a punch.
I don't think while they're walking to their benches, him walking over and shoving him is different than if it's like a dead ball and they're walking around and he walks up and shoves them. I don't know. I don't see the difference with that. I don't see how that would be a factor that makes them suspend him longer. I mean, a push in the back is a push in the back. A blindside push, the Salty said, is a blindsided push, whether or not they're walking to the benches or if it's a dead ball or whatever. So, yeah, it's a blindsided push. But, I mean, it seems like you get suspended, 5-6 games nowadays if you throw a punch. I don't know. I don't know if it's that bad. I'd say 2-3 in that area. I mean, but we're just parsing games. It's not...
I mean, I think it was bad. I'm not gonna.
I mean, I don't think it was good. I think it was bad too. It's just what degree of bad? You know what I mean?
And I like altercations as long as they're part of the game. But that one and the Jokic one, where he goes out of his way, out of frustration, and winds up and tries to foul on purpose to make a point. I just don't think those are basketball plays that have anything. But if you get into it, if him and Paul would have gone face to face, right as they're walking to the bench and started talking, and then he shoves him over or something, then that's totally fine in my opinion. But to push him in the back when he's defenseless like that, to me, that's just as bad as a punch in my opinion.
I should have said he should have been suspended for 10 games and not 5, so Gabe could have said I'm the voice of reason. But yeah, I mean, I think you're more likely to get hurt getting punched than getting shoved in the back. You know what I mean? So I don't know. If Chris Paul did get hurt, I'd say suspend him for more games.
Yeah,
many more games.
You know what I mean? That's always dangerous saying the result of it, because just because he didn't get hurt doesn't make it any better in my mind.
Yeah, but it would be worse if he got hurt. Mm-hmm. It would be worse if he got hurt. So that's the risk you take by doing something cheap. If you hurt the guy, you're gonna be punished severely. I think that's kind of how it goes, or I don't know. We've never seen somebody get hurt off of a blindsided push, so I don't know what the precedent is. It's just kind of throwing numbers out there.
This is my thing, though. It shows like a complete lack of being able to control your emotions and restraint. And to me, that is just as punishable as actually fighting, just because like someone says something to you. I can't even tell if Chris Paul said anything or like what happened, but like I just feel like if you're that out of control to where you're walking to your bench and you turn around and run towards the other person's bench to shove someone in the back, that just shows a lack of control and that you should be punished accordingly, in my opinion.
Yeah, Gordon says I think intent matters. It's not just about results.
Yeah.
I don't think his intent was to hurt him necessarily. I feel like if his intent was to hurt him, he could have done a lot more to try and hurt him. Maybe not with the team around, but I mean, I think it's part intent, in part like if you actually hurt the guy off of it, you should be punished heavier, in my opinion. That's just kind of the way it goes. That's the risk you take if you're gonna do some cheap stuff. I'm trying not to cuss. If you're gonna do some cheap stuff and do something like that, I mean, that's the risk you take. If you hurt him, you're gonna be punished even more. But like, I'm not saying you shouldn't get punished. It's just like, I don't know. It's like, is that as bad as a punch? I don't know.
I will say, despite how, like, I don't know if I would have been able to not, like, punch Pat Beverly if I'm a Suns player, but kudos to them, man, for all showing restraint and not getting suspended for a finals game and potentially costing them a championship by reacting to it. So I thought that was maybe Kaminsky should have taken one for the team because he was right there, but like just the restraint they showed in not retaliating. I think that was huge by the Suns. As Gabe and Salty know, the history of the Suns in a fight in the playoffs and suspensions and all that stuff, that would have been really bad if they lost a chance at a championship because of a suspension from a crappy move like Pat Bev pulled off.
1,000%. Zach says, this is a weird hill to die on, Tori. What, saying that he should be suspended for 2 or 3 games instead of 5 is a weird hill to die on? Really? What are you talking about, man? Saying that I don't know if it's as bad as a punch. I mean, I'd probably rather get shoved in the back than punched in the face. That's just me. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know if it's as bad as a punch, in my opinion. I don't know how it's a weird hill to die on. It's not that bold of a statement. So that's kind of a weird comment.
The other thing I'll say is, despite saying they showed some restraint or whatever, next season if I'm still on the Suns, I'm punching him the first time I play him. I'm just ball goes up and I'm laying him out. Like, screw that guy. Yeah,
it's just like, okay, so so he does something like that, so you're gonna like, it's bad, so you're gonna stoop to his level, though. I don't
know. I just don't think you can let someone get away with doing that to your player. Dude, the guy knew the series was over. The game, they were up 26 points. Their season was over. That guy was absolutely trying to go and do something to him. So yeah, I'm sending a message to him next time.
I don't buy the like thought process of what he did was really bad, so we gotta do something just as bad to him. You know what I mean? Like, isn't it like, okay, you're supposed to be above what Pat Beverly does because Pat Beverly was just an ass all series long? Aren't you supposed to be above it? Now here's the thing. If the league doesn't, I don't know, that's kind of where the league punishing him comes in, because it's like the league has to punish him. I don't know. I guess like that line of thinking is like you have to have the league punish him enough where the Suns don't feel the need to go out and do that. You know what I mean? Where like they feel like there was justice with the suspension that was adequate. So honestly, I'm more on board with like 5 games now. So thinking about it.
So let's say like CP3 gets whiplash or something and he misses a couple games in the finals because of this.
Why are you talking a hypothetical?
I'm just saying, like, that could have easily happened, right? So to me, just the fact that he was willing to do that to one of my teammates, I understand not responding there to save your season or whatever, but in my opinion, I wouldn't be able to let that go if someone like did that to you. If we were playing in the NBA together, I would absolutely want to retaliate for that next time I saw him. But that's just
I get it. I don't know. It's like trying to hurt people in the NBA is really bad. And I don't know if, like, I feel like Beverly could have sucker punched him if he was trying to hurt him, if that was his number one goal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think it was just like him taking out some anger and pushing him back, not necessarily like trying to hurt him.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he would have sucker punched him. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Like, but it was still bad. I'm not trying to downplay it. It's just like, I don't know. It's like taking something like that and then trying to hurt somebody over 8 months from now.
I just punch him in the face. So.
Bro, like, how do you punch somebody in the face and not try and hurt him? Isn't that the goal with punching somebody in the face?
I don't know, I guess.
You trying to like crack your knuckles? Is that the goal?
Gord has a good point. Just I'll walk by him pregame and show him the ring in his face, yeah.
Demon Time, I would break your ankles and dunk on you, bro. Don't even try me. Anyway, Demon Time said he would bully me if he guarded me. Yeah, no, you wouldn't. Anybody that says that, man, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Hopefully you can make JV next year as a junior. Anyway, let's not get too. We could talk about this for a while.
Dang, man.
What? Bro, anybody saying they'd push me in the back and stuff, you're getting timeout. What the hell?
Oh no,
I'm not. Nah.
What does it matter, Tori? It's not trying to hurt you, right?
Bro, I'm not advocating for it, Eric. I'm not advocating for it.
I know. I'm just teasing.
I'm not advocating to shove people in the back, all right? Including me. I'm not advocating for me to get pushed in the back. So if you say you'd push me in the back, that's a threat. 5-minute timeout. Have fun. Think about your choices, Hall Cooper. Anyway. You got a lot of what the kids call, Eric, cap in the chat.
Just anyone who's thinking they're destroy Tory 101, that guy has skills, so be careful.
Yeah, I mean, they don't know we hoop, Eric. I guess some people are new and don't know that we hoop.
Yeah.
The OGs know we hoop because we talked about playing basketball a lot during our first season of streaming. This past year, we kind of got away from it, but we hoop. Don't mess with us, all right? That's all I'm gonna say. Gabe versus me, I would love to play Gabe. But if he celebrates a 3 like I know he does, he thinks he's like J.R. Smith, Carmelo Anthony all rolled into one with his 3-point celebrations. I mean, I'm not gonna make the joke I'm gonna make, but Gabe says he's watched every minute of my career.
I've now played basketball twice in the last 15 months, so I'm on the comeback.
Hell yeah. I was gonna say I'd push Gabe in the back, but I didn't want to go there. I just tried to shut it down, so that didn't feel right to go there, you know. But yeah. Anyway, you want to get into mock off-season trades?
Sure.
All right, let's get into mock off-season trades. We're gonna talk about trades from our mock off-season. That's what the rest of the stream is going to be. Yeah, let's just get underway with it, and we'll keep talking with chat whatever crap you guys got to throw away. We're just gonna kick back and talk some trades in our mock off season. But we will try and get a meetup later in this month, probably towards the end of the month. And we'll set out invites if we know you and are comfortable with you in chat showing up to our pickup runs. I want to do them at least once, twice a month right now at a gym in the Portland area. So if you're in the Portland area, stay tuned. If you think you will bully me or break my ankles, I mean, Chiefin is here saying, Tori, been scared for the 1v1 since 2019. Bro, I want that 1v1 because I want to shut you up, dog. So any of you that thinks you can destroy me in a 1v1, you might get your chance. Chiefin better be there. He better not run from it because Yeah, he better not run from it, man. We're gonna have some pickup runs for you guys in chat to back up your talk. Anyway,
that'd be fun. A game of Crunch or 21 with you, Gabe, and I.
Hell yeah. Salty needs to learn how to spell my name right, though. I'm insulted. The number one guy I gotta call out right now is Saltiest Gaming for spelling my name wrong. He's just salty.
I mean, Satliest Gaming or something.
Satliest. Anyway, let's talk trades. You got Jackson Hayes, Eric, going to the Houston Rockets. GK makes another trade. So shout out to GK. The Pelicans get Avery Bradley and an unprotected 2028 Los Angeles Lakers first. What do you think about this one?
I thought it was okay. Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of a weird trade, but Jackson Hayes probably get a little more playing time, a little better fit on the Rockets, and Pelicans get a defending guard to replace what they missed last year with Drew Holiday being traded.
Yeah. I wouldn't give up an unprotected future first for a guy like Jackson Hayes, because that unprotected future first, that far down the line, could be the number one pick. You could be saying no to the next LeBron James for all you know, just so you can get Jackson Hayes. Yeah. I'm not with that. If it was protected, sure. But Houston's just in rebuild mode, so they're going after young players. They have like 20 players on their roster. It's just a mismatch of a bunch of different pieces. So GK has to sort out his roster and get that down to 15. They have a ton of picks, and I believe they have 20 players on it right now. So GK might need to make a trade before tomorrow's draft to clear the roster spots for the players he drafts, GK. So I would be trying that if I were you. But yeah, it's been entertaining to watch GK just do what he's done all mock off season. Next trade we got is another one with the Rockets. You got the Rockets and the Jazz. This is an interesting one. You got the Jazz getting Thaddeus Young from the Rockets. The Rockets got Thad Young in the John Wall to Chicago trade, which the Rockets definitely won that one. They flip Thaddeus Young to Utah and get back Joe Ingles and a $2.6 million TPE. Gordy is running the Jazz. He said he wanted playmaking at the 4 and 5 spot off the bench. He thinks Thad Young can play both of them. Thad Young improved his playmaking a ton this past year. He's a good defender. I'd say he's kind of a lot like Joe Ingles, but he's not a shooter, and he's more of an interior player. But like in terms of the playmaking, defense, those traits, they're kind of similar. So I thought this was an interesting trade. Houston, I don't know. Like, I figured they got Joe Ingles back to flip him, but they haven't traded him, and this trade happened 6 days ago or so. So I don't know what GK is planning to do with Joe Ingles. What did you think about this trade?
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense for the Rockets, but I do not like it at all for the Jazz. I understand the thinking in wanting to get Thaddeus Young, but I'd rather have Joe Ingles than Thaddeus Young. It's pretty close, but Joe Ingles, in my opinion, is still a little more important to their overall schemes and stuff like that. So I probably would have not done this and tried to find a different way to get Young, not having to give up Ingles. Yeah,
I feel like if Utah got a second-round pick back or two in this trade, then it's definitely a win. I think this is kind of an trade for them. I wouldn't say it's necessarily bad. I like Thad Young. I just think it was a situation where maybe you could have traded Joe Ingles. I know a lot of contending level teams were interested in Joe Ingles around our mock offseason. I feel like you could have traded Joe Ingles to a third team, gotten back a first-round pick in a couple seconds, and maybe flipped the first-round pick to Houston for Thad Young and kept the seconds. I feel like Utah could have gotten a little bit more value out of this trade, but overall it's an interesting swap. Anyway, next trade we got is going to be a long one. This one you did, Eric. Let's just take the pick protections out because you know what the pick protections are. So you're the Pistons. You traded Isaiah Stewart. You got back the 21st pick in the 2021 draft and a 2023 first-round pick via New York protected 1 through 3. So you got 2 first-round picks back for Isaiah Stewart, including a 21 overall pick in a loaded draft. I mean, I think this is an A trade for you. and I'll get your thinking on it in a second. I just think this is an A trade for you. Getting back the 21st pick in this year's draft for Isaiah Stewart, I think was even value, but then adding another first onto that's only lightly protected, top 3 protected, I think is a win. Toronto's going rebuild mode. Isaiah Stewart's a solid player, and if he can reach his ceiling, then maybe this is a solid trade, but that's the only way I could see this being a little bit of a win for them. I think it's more likely it ends up they did not get that good value in this trade and gave up a little bit too much for Isaiah Stewart.
Honestly, this was right in line with several other teams' offers. This was the best one, but there were several teams willing to give up 2 first for Isaiah Stewart. So
you're flexing right now, Eric.
It wasn't necessarily like a just random oh, will you give me 2 firsts for Isaiah Stewart? Oh yeah, okay, cool. I ripped you off or whatever. There were multiple teams willing to do it, and I kind of wanted to keep Stewart. I really liked what he did last year, but I kind of needed his salary to go away to set up for a trade we'll talk about later. So
yeah, a later fleecing.
I ended up using this pick to get the final piece to make another trade, the 21st pick, and I didn't have to use this first round pick in it either. So I ended up getting Isaiah Stewart off my books to free up some salary, and picked up a future first and made another trade. And originally I was going to trade Isaiah Stewart as part of this other trade, but the person didn't want Isaiah Stewart, so I moved him elsewhere, and it ended up being much better for me.
Yeah, you say there's similar deals to this one that were offered. Sounds like there's a lot of teams trying to overpay for Isaiah Stewart. There's been a lot of teams have overpaid a little bit for guys, I feel like, in this mock off season. That's kind of been the norm, and it's kind of created a situation where it's guys are giving up even more than they should because they're just trying to outbid. At some point, it's almost like you got to have a plan B where you're not just shedding a bunch of assets and overpaying for a guy. And that's kind of what I've seen. It's a lot of guys, it seems like they don't really know what their plan B or plan C is running their teams. So it's they got to overpay for somebody, and they got to go out and get somebody. Yeah. Even though there's free agency coming up, there's the draft coming up. You use those draft picks, and this is a loaded draft, so you'll be able to get a player of Isaiah Stewart's caliber with the 21st pick, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think that's kind of been the theme, and there will be a couple trades later where teams are just overpaying for guys for whatever reason. So, anyway, next trade also involves you, and this is the big trade. This is the big trade that you were setting up for. So you traded the 7th pick, the 21st pick, and the 37th pick. Corey Joseph was just a throw-in. So it was basically the 7th pick, 21st pick, and 37th pick to get back the 3rd pick and Kevin Love. And that's what you used, the cap space that you created. That's why you dumped Isaiah Stewart, so you could create enough space to take back Kevin Love. Now, do you want to give your thoughts on this trade, or do you want me to give my thoughts first?
I'll go first, just for the record. So I completely absorbed Kevin Love's 31 point whatever million contract. I had to trade for, I think it was 4 or 5, maybe even 6 contracts that were 1.5 million on second year, second round minimum signings last year. That only counted as 1.5 million against the cap instead of the 1.7 thing, and I still only made it by 200,000 to be able to do this trade, to be able to absorb Kevin Love's salary outright. So it was very, very close, and so that was part of the mindset. Was he wanted off Love's contract, and I gave him a way to get completely off of it, minus the 2.4 million non-guaranteed. But it's no question when I get a rebuilding team like the Pistons and I get lucky and get the first pick that I absolutely wanted one of the other top 4 players in this draft. And Cleveland was nice enough to allow me.
Nice enough to let you fleece them to the. This is an F trade for Cleveland and an A+ trade for you. The top 4 guys in this draft are phenomenal. I think there's a clear-cut top 3. I think there's a clear-cut top 3 and a clear-cut top 4. I think very top tier is obviously Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Jalen Green. I think Jalen Green is up there with those guys. I love Jalen Green. And then number 4 is Jalen Suggs. And he's kind of in a tier by himself, but still a very, very high tier. I think last year there's a chance Jalen Suggs goes number 1. I think any of the top 3 guys automatically go number 1 last season in last year's draft. So to be able to get into the top 3 is an absolute win. You're in rebuild mode. Bringing in Kevin Love isn't going to hurt you. It's not like you're going to use cap space to sign anybody anyway. You're in rebuild mode in Detroit. Yeah. So the fact that you're going to be able to get 2 of Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, and Jalen Green is a win. Absolute win. For Cleveland, they give up on a potential generational talent to move down in the draft to clear cap space by trading Kevin Love, and we will see who they use that cap space on later. Actually, it's in the thumbnail, so you guys probably already know. Cleveland essentially trades out of the top 3 to clear cap space so they can trade for Russell Westbrook, which is just a horrible, horrible, horrible plan. I mean, sorry, Dizzy D, if you're watching, a team in rebuild mode, you got to find a star, okay? Russell Westbrook is not really a star player anymore, in my opinion. Some people say he is.
He's like
a
star, but that's not the type of star you want to rebuild.
What, they're going to be the 10th? They're going to be the 10th seed in the East now, maybe be the 8th seed? They're going to be stuck on the borderline of the playoffs for 3 seasons or whatever, and then they're going to have to completely rebuild from scratch. Okay, also, you're pairing Russell Westbrook. I mean, we'll talk about Westbrook in a little bit, but basically that was his whole plan here. He trades out of getting a generational talent, maybe the next superstar, by getting one of Cunningham, Mobley, or Green. Also, he can go out and get Russell Westbrook. I don't like that plan whatsoever. So
if he kept Sexton and Garland, and Cade and Mobley go 1-2 in whatever order, and maybe I could see him liking someone a few spots down, getting rid of Love, and then I kind of defended this trade because he possibly could have gone after a younger free agent or some of the restricted free agents, say John Collins or a Gary Trent or someone like that. And I thought it would have been a much better move for him if he got one of those guys and drafted well with his other picks. But yeah, when he turned around and used that cap space to bring in Westbrook and pair him with Colin Sexton, that's I can't think of a worse backcourt combination than those two. And to use all the, he would have been better off just keeping Kevin Love's salary, maybe even buying him out and just keeping the 3rd pick, in my opinion. So yeah, but complete waste of getting rid of Kevin Love's salary and creating that huge trade exception, and then he just wastes it on
yeah. Here's what Cleveland should have done, and this is what they should do in real life. Trade Colin Sexton, draft Jalen Green number 3. Yeah. Or Evan Mobley, or, I assume Cade Cunningham and Evan Mobley are going 1 and 2 in real life and in the mock. You trade Colin Sexton and you draft Jalen Green, and Jalen Green is your future starting shooting guard. Darius Garland is your future starting point guard. You have probably your future starting center in Jarrett Allen. And then next year's draft, hopefully you can get a potential superstar forward. And then you have the pieces down the line to contend if everybody develops accordingly. You could have a really good team 3-4 years from now. Okay? That's what he should have done, and that's what Cleveland should do. Okay? Colin Sexton, he scored 24 points per game. You can't have a point guard, Eric, who nobody wants to play with because he doesn't pass the ball.
Over dribbles, yeah.
Dude, people think CJ is bad with how CJ over dribbles and doesn't pass the ball. Colin Sexton is 10 times worse. He's also 2-3 inches shorter than CJ. He can't play the 2. He basically has the size of a 1. They averaged 4.5 assists per game last year, but for a point guard that dominates the ball as much as he does, it's worse than CJ, and CJ plays off the ball a lot more. Sexton is a guy nobody wants to play with. He plays extremely selfish, and I mean, let's get to the Westbrook trade because I want to talk about their pairing.
Kyle Wilson says that's such a bad move by Cleveland that he could actually see it doing it in real life. That's funny.
I mean, go ahead.
We've seen the Cavs like in past drafts, like the Damian Lillard draft, they take Dion Waiters at 4 or whatever. Like, so it's not out of the possibility that they take like a Scotty Barnes or like a one of those guys at 3 and just completely mess up the whole draft. I could see them doing something crazy.
Yeah, Trevin said Sexton played shooting guard off of Garland a lot. Here's the problem. Garland's, 6'2"? Sexton is 6'1". Okay, everybody talks about our undersized backcourt. Bro, they're, like, noticeably more undersized. Mm-hmm. You cannot play Colin Sexton at the 2 as a starting guard in the NBA. He has to be a point guard. The problem is he is selfish and is not a good distributor whatsoever. And his teammates, this has come out, his teammates don't want to play with him because of it, okay? And that's going to be the leader of your team, like, long-term? You can't be. He is a sixth man in the NBA. Everybody talks about CJ being a sixth man. Colin Sexton is actual sixth man. Or he's a starting point guard next to another point guard, but a point guard who's big enough to, like, basically be the de facto 2. So, like, Alonzo Ball or a Tyrese Halliburton, a guy that can facilitate and initiate the offense and kind of run things, and Sexton can play basically as the 2 on offense, but then as the 1 on defense, okay? Because 6'1", guard and 2s, nah. Especially when you're playing next to Garland. Honestly, I like Garland better as a future point guard. He had a big improvement last season. He averaged 17 points per game and 6 assists per game in 33 minutes per game. Per 36, that equals out to 19 points per game at 6.5 assists. He had a 55 true shooting percentage, not the best, but noticeable improvement from his rookie year. Shot 45% from the field and 39.5% from 3. Garland is the point guard going forward because he has potential to be a scorer, but he also is a better distributor. So they should cash in on Sexton because there's probably a team out there who's like, ooh, an efficient 24 points per game. And he's young. Let's go get that guy and overpay for him. And I bet you, if Cleveland tried to trade Colin Sexton in the mock offseason with how everybody's overpaying for things, he could have gotten back such a huge haul for him. Mm-hmm. Instead, he traded Garland for 2 firsts, and Sacramento traded for Garland, which makes no sense because they have De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton. Like, that was a trade that made no sense for either team, really. But, like, you could have gotten 2, maybe 3 firsts for Colin Sexton, and you should have done. That's what should have been done. And then you draft Jalen Green at 3, and then you move forward. That's what should have happened. But instead, he basically tried to get cap space. This trade on the screen was also part of the move there.
See, I thought I was like, okay, he's actually doing something, because then immediately after our trade, he dishes Prince for nothing. He didn't even have to give up like a second-round pick, and I thought, Ben's going to think I'm picking on him again, but I thought this was a horrible trade by Ben. Prince has been terrible. His contract is not good, and to not... Dizzy D was actually saying, like, willing to attach assets to get rid of Prince if anyone wants to take on his salary, and then Ben doesn't even get even a second-round pick for it. So I thought now he's sitting there at this point with a, like, $32 million trade player exception and now a little over $12 million trade exception. I thought he could have used those to, maybe maneuver around the draft, pick up another pick, absorb some salary versus just trying to get a star. And we'll see what happened with that in a minute.
Yeah, I'm not as low on Taurean Prince as you are. He shot 40% from 3 last season and is an okay defender. Now he struggled from 2 this past season. He's regressed in that regard, but as just like a 3-and-D guy, he's definitely overpaid. But I believe he's going on to the last year of his deal, so I don't think he's like terrible or a guy you should have to attach a first to. I think you should have to attach a second to him. I think he's a slightly negative value, so I think it wasn't a good trade for Ben. He probably should have gotten back a second or 2, especially considering what Cleveland was willing to give up. But I wouldn't say it's like horrible. So
he did only play 41 games last year. So
yeah, that's the other problem is he is. not the healthiest. The 3 seasons before that, he played 82 games, 55, 64. So he has missed a little bit of time almost every season he's been in the league. I don't know, but that was a cap-saving move for Cleveland. And then this was... Actually, let's just talk about the Westbrook trade and then go back to... Did I save the Westbrook trade? There it is. And then let's go back to... Let's see here. We're talking about Cleveland. So let's talk about the next Cleveland trade. They did this trade, which was interesting. This was kind of like just a random trade. It didn't really help them trade for Westbrook, but I actually think this is the best trade that Cleveland pulled off. They got back at the 14th pick in this year's draft. DeAndre Jordan for Shetty Osman. Shetty Osman is not good, and neither is DeAndre Jordan isn't really good.
At this point, yeah.
Doesn't matter. So basically, it's a future first that's top 7 protected in 2027 when Cleveland, if they're able to rebuild, should be good. If not, it's top 7 protected. If it's in the top 7, it just turns into a second-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be a situation where they're trading a late first, who knows how good that draft is, for the 14th pick in this year's draft, which is really good, which is absolute win.
Yeah.
Or it's 2 seconds for the 14th pick in this year's draft, which is an absolute win. So I thought this was a mistake by Golden State. I thought this was a really good trade by Cleveland.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't like teams that are rebuilding giving up first unless you're getting a draft pick in this draft. So like Ben giving up a first rounder for Gordon Hayward. I don't like that from a rebuilding team. But this particular trade, giving up a future first when you're getting a pick that you can use right now, that, like you said, might be just as good as that pick. So I'm fine with that. And now, at this point, he's sitting there with the 7th, 14th, 21st, 37th pick. So he's got a lot of pick assets now to maneuver around the draft, maybe move back up, or swing for the fences with 3 different picks versus the number 3 pick. So still to this point, I felt like he was doing okay and maybe still had a chance to come out as not necessarily the winner of the trade with me, but still set himself up if he does the plan correctly. But
no, he wasn't doing okay. He traded a top 3 pick in this year's draft.
Yeah.
For cap space, essentially. Cleveland wasn't going to be able to sign anybody anyway that was worthwhile, and it was only going to maybe make their pick next year, in the 6 to 10 range instead of the top 5. They should be tanking, they should be rebuilding, they should have not traded for cap space and traded out of the top 3 where there's 3 insanely legitimate prospects. So I don't agree with he was still doing good. I think this in isolation was a good deal, but I think at this point he was doing bad because he traded out of the top 3. Just that trade to get out of the top 3, to give up on one of Jalen Green, Mobley, or Cunningham just for some cap space essentially was just an L.
Yeah.
So, but he did make it worse.
Yeah.
No offense. We told everybody participating in this not to take things personally. That's part of the deal. We're going to critique your moves. It's nothing personal. So, we did give people a warning and they still wanted to partake. So this is part of the territory. And we can kind of look at, I think this is a good way to prep for the offseason because obviously we kind of cover the entire NBA in the offseason with the draft or free agency. And this is a good way to prep for you guys watching that aren't in this or for people in this as well. By talking about why moves are good, why moves are bad, it kind of gives you a good feel, in my opinion, for how things work in the offseason, and maybe might give you some insight right off the bat when moves are actually made in the real NBA. It might give you some insight on if moves are good or bad, just with your own intuition that you gain from watching this type of stuff. I don't know. But yeah, a rebuilding team, don't trade down the draft for cap space. Don't trade out of the top 3 where there's 3 insanely good prospects that would go probably number 1 in half the other drafts.
What's funny is in real life, the Detroit Pistons, I still think it was stupid to buy out Blake Griffin with 2 years remaining on his deal. And I have I think it's $37 million or something. It might not be that much. I think they agreed to a lesser amount, but I have $30 million in dead cap space just from Blake Griffin next year. So that's just one of the things I had to like account for with trying to get cap space, which made it very difficult. But yeah, it's like I don't agree. I don't think they should have bought out Love, but yeah, I think just holding on to him and at the worst case do what Toronto or not Toronto, Oklahoma City did with Al Horford this year and just don't play him, and then you have that still piece to trade because if you buy him out, you can't trade him. So at worst, he's got like a $31 million expiring deal to maybe take on a bad contract and get someone else, take on another bad contract, but pick up a pick like I did, So in my opinion, that's the direction you should always go. I agree with that.
Yep. So let's look at the Westbrook trade. Here we go. You got DeAndre Jordan to the Wizards, Westbrook to the Cavs. I'm just going to make this bigger so you guys can see the players. Basically, it ends up being, I think, it was one future first via Sacramento protected 1 to 5. It was a first that Cleveland got back for Darius Garland when they traded Garland to Sacramento. So it was a 2025 Sacramento first, and I believe it was 6 second-round picks.
5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah. So a future first and 6 second-round picks for Russell Westbrook. Absolute win for the Wizards. Absolute win. They get off of Westbrook's contract, only having to take back Jordan. They save a ton of money. $34 million they save in this trade. It turns into a $34 million trade, player exception. $34 million they save in this trade, and they get back a future first and 6 second-round picks. Absolute win for the Wizards. They've been really good this mock offseason. We'll look at a future trade. And yeah, this is the Westbrook trade for Cleveland. Let me just say this. Nobody wants to play with a backcourt of Westbrook and Sexton, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, but those two guys in the backcourt is just oof.
He was able to keep Jared Allen's cap hold. But other than that, he had to give up that huge $30 million plus trade exception. He had to give up the Taurean Prince trade exception of $12.25 million that he just got, and renounce like all his other free agents basically. So just to take on Russell Westbrook and give up all those seconds and a future first, I probably would have been okay with this if it was just a few seconds or maybe no seconds and just the first. In a vacuum, if you weren't talking about like anything else, but I think this is like a way overpay even for Westbrook. So just the fact that it was Cleveland doing this and wasting all those assets they got, just a horrible move by Cleveland in my opinion.
I wouldn't even take Westbrook on for free.
Yeah,
Eric, because here's the problem with Westbrook. He does not function as the number 2 or number 3 guy on a team that has a chance to win the championship.
Right.
Because he can't play off the ball. He can't shoot. He has to dominate the ball to be effective. The problem is, if he dominates the ball, you never have a chance to win a championship because he is not good enough to be the number 1 on a team that wins the championship. So there's certain guys in the NBA where it's like you look at them and it's like, man, they're talented. And I'm not saying Westbrook isn't talented, but it's like they have to slot into a role as the number 1 guy, the number 2 guy, the number 3 guy. The problem is he's talented, but his talent isn't good enough to be the number 1, and the way he plays doesn't work as the number 2 or the number 3 or as a role player. Therefore, in my opinion, for as much money as he has, he is a negative value. I wouldn't want him in that contract for free, even if I was a team like contending, let alone a team trying to rebuild. So I wouldn't even want him for free.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like last year, Washington did give up a first for him. So I'm just saying, like in terms of actual like realistic real life value, I agree with you. I would never trade for Westbrook, so that's a guy I would not want on my team. But I'm just saying, like compared to the John Wall trade, like giving up a first wouldn't have been terrible, nor would giving up a few seconds. But yeah, to give up all that stuff and waste all your other trade exceptions and stuff is just a horrible use of getting off a Love's contract, and now you have to pay Russell Westbrook more. It's just really bad.
Yeah, the thing is, the guy who's running Cleveland, he ran Cleveland last year, and Eric also traded number 7. What'd you trade? You traded number 7 and Nick Batum for number 3 and Al Horford, or something like that.
Yeah, he
That wasn't
traded
quite as
Al
bad,
Horford
but
for Kevin Love, and Horford still had 3 years left on his deal at the time.
hmm
Batum wasn't expiring, and he was going for cap space. Yeah, it wasn't the worst move, but obviously, like,
it was just
I want
annoying
the
that
higher
it
pick. Yeah,
it was you trading up from 7 to 3 with the same exact guy for the second year in a row.
I think in addition to another rule that you'll implement that we won't say here, just because I don't want to be mean or anything, but the other rule should be you can't be the same team 2 years in a row, just so you're not like trading the
hmm
same players and people know like what your value and stuff like that.
Also, you need to be a team trying to contend next year, Eric. A
What?
team because bro, I know you have fun. It's easy to just sit here with your knowledge, Eric, and just when everybody else is overpaying, right? It's easy to just sit here and let everybody overpay for your players and get all these picks, then toss them around and trade up into the top 3 in the draft when you already have the #1 pick for the second year in a row, I might add, because you had it last year because we had to run our own mock lottery and you were Charlotte and they won it. So
I was Charlotte last year and they had the 8th best odds. That was luck, and
it was like, I'm just saying.
Detroit had tied for the first, I guess. But
I'm just saying, you got to challenge yourself, Eric. You're too good not to challenge yourself. With everybody's overpaying, and you know as much as you do.
But
I mean, but be a contender, okay? Because here's the thing: we're out here. Everybody is having to overpay and bid for players. If you were one of those teams, I think it would be a lot more challenging for you. And I want to see how you do out here bidding against people when everybody's overpaying for guys. Because that's what I ran into as Portland. Luckily, I was able to trade CJ for Siakam and only give up 2 firsts in the process. I just want to see how you do in that role instead of just deja vu.
okay,
So,
we'll see.
Yeah.
I can team up.
I mean, you can. I'm just saying, I want to see it. So
I did not want OKC though. I thought that would have been way too easy.
Yep. Don't cheat and look at any of these trades yet. I'm scrolling back to, let's see. I went the wrong way. Let me scroll back. We just covered everything Cleveland did. Let's get back to the other trades that other teams did. Here, it was right here. All right, so the Bulls, they traded for John Wall. They traded Patrick Williams for John Wall. That's still maybe the worst trade of the mock offseason. No offense, Malcolm. This trade, I mean, they're trying to win, so they got John Wall and Zach LaVine as their starting guards. Vucevic, of course. They traded Thaddeus Young in the John Wall trade, so they're like thin, and they traded Patrick Williams, so I don't know who their forwards are going to be if they're trying to win. And they trade Thomas Satoransky, who can play the 3. He's kind of like a playmaking 3 who can shoot and solid defender. They trade Satoransky in the 18th pick for Seth Curry, who went to Toronto in the Fred VanVleet to Philadelphia trade. My take on this is good for Toronto. They were able to get the 18th pick, essentially, out of that Fred VanVleet trade by getting back Seth Curry and then flipping him for it. They're in rebuild mode. They traded Siakam. I think they've done an okay job in terms of their rebuild. At least they've been consistently pushing towards accumulating future assets and picks and whatnot. And they get back Satoransky, who's a player I feel like they could flip for a couple seconds at least. He's a solid player. So I like Toronto's end of this deal. For Chicago, they need to address the forward spot. They should have used the 18th pick and Satoransky to try and get a forward. Instead, they get a third guard in Seth Curry. They already traded Kobe White, so I guess they needed a third guard. It's just like, what are they going to do for forwards if they're trying to win? I don't necessarily understand this for them. It's a little bit of an overpay, and then it doesn't address their need.
I love Seth Curry, but not on a fringe playoff team, if that. Like, that's a horrible move, in my opinion. Yeah,
Everybody's but Cleveland trading out of 3, huh?
I didn't say it was worse than that.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
In my mind, so this trade, I don't know if he contacted GK about this, but I would have traded Satoransky in the 18th pick for Ingles. I think he would have fit much better than Curry did. He's a forward, and something like that instead of Curry. So, I mean, I understand what the Bulls are doing. They're trying to be good. I think he only has like 4 players under contract right now or something like that. So he's going to have to do a lot of work in free agency to fill out the roster without much cap space or exceptions to do that. So he definitely needs to make something work here. And yeah, GK is already, see, I'm making deals that should have happened. But yeah, so he's going to have a really tough time with that John Wall contract, put it to where he doesn't really have cap space.
Mm-hmm.
And he only had, like I said, only has a few players under contract. And then here he is trading a pick away too. So he doesn't have, I can't remember how many picks he has other than that, but he's gonna struggle, in my opinion, to fill out his roster with enough depth, especially when you have an injury-prone point guard like John Wall taking up almost half your salary cap. Like
Yeah.
you have to account for that, so it's going to be really hard for him to get the right pieces, in my mind.
Here's the thing. He had Thaddeus Young to start this mock off season. I mean, could have flipped Thaddeus. I mean, Thaddeus Young got traded for Joe Ingles. You could have
Straight
flipped
up.
Thaddeus Young for Joe Ingles. Okay. Then you still could have done a pick for Seth Curry, most likely. And you could have rolled in with a starting lineup of Seth Curry, Zach LaVine, Joe Ingles, Patrick Williams, Nikola Vucevic. And Zach LaVine
good,
and
yeah.
Ingles are good enough facilitators where you could run Seth at the one. And you just probably wouldn't bring the ball up. You'd split that between Zach LaVine and Joe Ingles. That'd be an intriguing lineup. And then you'd have a little bit more money. You wouldn't be paying John Wall. You wouldn't have to rely on him being healthy, which is just a death sentence pretty much. So,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah,
That
I
sounds
don't.
a lot better. He
Yeah,
that's if he pulled that off, if he got Ingles and Curry, but not Wall, and he had that starting lineup still had Patrick Williams and all that stuff, he'd be right up there as one of the better moves in terms of a team just trying to make that next step, I think.
instead, he traded for John Wall.
Yeah.
Instead, yeah, he botches from the start. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, next trade we got was a 4-team trade. All right, I'm just gonna say my part of it. I helped make it work. I took on Paul Watson for cash. I have a lot of open roster spots. I like what Paul Watson shot, like 46% from three in 27 games last year. Looked to be a pretty good shooter. I think he might be one of those underrated guys right now that might be able to be like a shooter off the bench in the future. So taking him on for nothing, using a traded player exception to absorb him, he's making like 1.4 million. Worth it in my opinion. Not obviously not like a blockbuster move or anything, but felt like that was worth it. It was just definitely the smallest part of the trade. So let's just focus on the 3-team trade here, Eric. Minnesota traded. I'm just going to look at it from Minnesota, then Charlotte, then Toronto. Minnesota traded Juan Hernan-Gomez, Jake Layman, and Jalen Noel, and got back Terrence Ross and 2 second-round picks. I really like this trade for Minnesota. I'm not super high on Terrence Ross, but what they gave up for him was pretty much nothing. Hernan-Gomez, Layman, and Noel, and they get back 2 seconds on top of Terrence Ross, and they kind of needed a wing that could score. You know, a guy that could maybe play small forward and be a scoring threat. They traded Jarrett Culver for Chris Boucher, who I think is a great starting 4 option next to Karl Anthony Towns. Fits really well with Karl Anthony Towns, 3-and-D guy that can protect the rim and help Karl Anthony Towns out in that regard. And then Terrence Ross, maybe he can start at the 3 or come off the bench, and they get him back for pretty much just mediocre role players, and they get back seconds with it. I think Arshad made a really good deal here for Minnesota.
Yeah, not bad. I would probably try to flip Ross again, but yeah, if he's trying to make a run at the playoffs, he picked up Boucher earlier in the mock-off season that we talked about last time we talked about trades. So yeah, I think Arshad is just, he's not making that move to where he like screws their future or anything. He's just making little smart moves, picking up a few assets here and there, and he's still ready to pounce if a better trade becomes available, but not really doing anything to mess up. He's just making little tweaks to hopefully make them better. And he was the one guy who got really screwed in the draft lottery when they lost their pick, their first rounder to Golden State. So I think after that happened, he's done a pretty good job of kind of managing his assets.
Yep. I think he needs to make one more splash.
Yeah.
Muted. Sorry, I was muted. But yeah, anyway, I caught it before anybody said it in chat on my end, so that's a W. I was saying our shot needs to make one more splash. There's all the mute. Yeah, there it is. Our shot needs to make one more splash. He needs to make a splash and get a higher caliber player than this to truly give himself a chance to make the playoffs. I think he's made the team noticeably better. The Boucher was just an A+ trade for him, in my opinion. But yeah, I think he needs to make one more splash. I don't think his job is done here, but I like what he's done so far.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's focus on Charlotte. Charlotte ends up trading. They trade up from 5 to 4. So Toronto and Charlotte swap the 4th pick for the 5th pick. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but the 4th pick gets you a chance at Jalen Suggs. Now, I don't really know if Jalen Suggs fits with LaMelo Ball. That's kind of an interesting in transition. Yeah. If they play a super fast tempo, I really like those two playing together. It's just kind of an interesting fit there. But other than that, Charlotte, just forgetting that sort of 4-for-5 swap. Charlotte trades Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, Vernon Carey, and they had Terrence Ross as well, so Terrence Ross was in this deal. They trade Terrence Ross, Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, Vernon Carey, and 2 second-round picks. They get back the 19th pick, OG Anunoby, Hernan Gomez, Layman, and Bembry. What do you think about that for Charlotte?
I really like moving up from 5 to 4 for the reasons you mentioned. So that was the most important part. I think giving up Miles Bridges and PJ Washington is tough, but they pick up the 19th pick as well and get OG, who I think fits that team very well also. So I kind of like what Charlotte did here. I think they went for a home run, getting one of those top 4 picks, and they also get one of the best perimeter defenders if he's healthy in OG, and pick up a mid first round pick in a loaded draft like you mentioned. So I really like their maneuvering here.
Yep. Yeah, I'd say B. It's just a weird trade. Mm-hmm. It's just a strange trade, so it's hard to even evaluate it. But I give it a solid B. I think it's a good move for Charlotte value wise to get back probably the best player in this deal as well as the best pick. If you can get the best pick and the best player in a deal, and it's going to be hard for that to be a bad deal.
Right.
Especially when the best player in the deal is young. Mm-hmm. So you're probably improving the team a little bit now. Losing PJ Washington kind of hurts. I think it's pretty much a wash now, but long term, if you're able to fill that 4 spot, it's better because you have a better 3. I'd like get OG over Miles Bridges, and then you move up from 5 to 4, and then you add the 19th pick as well, which should not be underrated in this deal. I think it's it's probably B+, maybe A- actually, the more I think about it for Charlotte. So good job, Zach. Toronto trades down from 4 to 5. They trade the 19th pick. They trade OG Anunoby for Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, Vernon Carey, Jalen Noel. So it's basically the opposite of that. So what do you think about it from Toronto's perspective?
I don't really like that they're now going to miss out on Suggs or whoever's there at 4. I do kind of like getting Bridges and PJ Washington, but yeah, I don't think that's enough. I wouldn't have given up the 19th pick probably. But yeah, I mean, I get it. They like Bridges, they like Washington, and we're okay with moving down 1 spot. But it's just kind of
The way this trade would make sense is if Toronto wanted a guy at number 4 that they don't think Charlotte will take and move down to number 5 to make this deal happen. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Maybe it's a Jonathan Kuminga. Or maybe they don't care who they get out of Suggs and Kuminga, and therefore it doesn't matter. They move down from 4 to 5. You know what I mean? That part might make sense for them. Also, it might make sense in terms of I could see Miles Bridges. I'll say this. I like OG Anunoby as a prospect. He's far safer than Miles Bridges. I think is a far, far better role player than Miles Bridges, long term. Just because he's such a phenomenal defender and then can shoot the 3 ball, and you need 3-and-D guys. However, I think Miles Bridges' ceiling as kind of a bit of a go-to guy, he has more potential in that regard, so maybe his ceiling is a little bit higher. I mean, he shot 50, 40, 85% splits from the field, 3, and the free throw line this past year, and averaged almost 13 points per game. So I could see maybe Toronto trading for him, like thinking he can maybe be a 20-point per game scorer and decently efficient like that,
Sure.
and not valuing OG like that. So yeah, and then you get back PJ Washington. I don't know. It's just a weird trade. If they kept the 19th pick and didn't care if they drafted 4 or 5 because of somebody they like, or maybe they don't care between Suggs and Kuminga, then I'd say this is a fine trade for them. I just wouldn't have given up the 19th pick.
Yeah, agreed. So, yeah, they're obviously going super young. That's all they've done is trade. They traded Siakam, they traded OG, they traded Van Vliet, and they've traded Seth Curry for a draft pick. So yeah, they're obviously just trying to load up on young talent, which is totally okay. I actually really hope the Raptors in real life do that, because I would love to, as a Blazer fan, maybe pick up an OG or a Siakam or whatever. But yeah, overall, I think that's a fine strategy. And if that is your strategy, despite how, in my mind, the top 4 are clearly separated, there are some guys in that 5, 6, 7 range that are more of prospects, but could be better than some of those other guys. And yeah, I think getting one of those guys on a team that's not even trying to compete for a few years is totally fine. You're not looking for someone who's going to come in and be a star necessarily right away. So I think that's totally fine.
Yep. Next trade. We talked about that one. We talked about that one. Here you go. Here's an interesting one. You got Derek White for Tristan Thompson and Aaron Nesmith. This is actually, Eric, a solid trade for both sides, in my opinion, because Boston's trying to win. We'll talk about the move they made in a little bit, but they kind of they end up giving up Peyton Pritchard in a future trade, which means they need a backup guard. They get a guard that can play the point or the 2. Can play some defense. A guy in Derek White. He had, let me check his stats last year, because he was very up and down last year from what I remember.
He was terrible last year.
Yeah. He 41% from the field, 34% from 3, but the year before that was 46% from the field, almost 37% from 3. So I think maybe it was he had a little bit too much of the scoring load in there in San Antonio. It is, maybe not the guy who's supposed to be your number 2, number 3 scorer. He's more of a lead guard off the bench, and a really good guard off the bench. They need a point guard. They don't have Kemba Walker, and so maybe he ends up starting. But they needed a guard, and they got back a solid guard who's still decently young, has years of control, maybe a little bit overpaid, but Tristan Thompson was a bit overpaid as well. So they give up Thompson, they give up Nesmith, who's a good prospect, but they get back a player they need. They're trying to win now. If Ime Udoka ends up being a really good coach, that's who they hired in the mock-off season and in real life. And maybe they're able to contend. If that's the case, then I like this trade for him.
Yeah, I'm obviously still a very big Nesmith fan, and I thought he started to show a lot of promise towards the end of last season. So I absolutely love this trade for the Spurs. The Celtics, it's just going to come down to whether or not this was just because White was battling the injuries last season, never really caught his legs or any conditioning under him with the weird COVID year and all that stuff. So if White turns out to be the solid player that the Spurs thought he was going to be when they signed him to that extension, I think that's correct that it's a pretty good trade for both teams. If White is just kind of, maybe he had a good stretch and that got him paid, and now he's not really that player, this could look really bad for the Celtics if Nesmith develops into anything.
Yep. Caleb says he thinks it's a bad trade for the Spurs. Thompson is a negative contract, and I think the Spurs could get more for White than Nesmith. Nesmith's a really good young prospect. Being able to get a really good young prospect for White is about what White's value is. And the thing is, you're not going to get back a guy like Nesmith unless you most likely take on more salary, because White is going into a contract extension where he's making $15 million a year. So you're not going to be able to trade $15 million for $2 million for a team trying to match salary. They're going to have to throw in other salary. And it's not like the Spurs are really going to sign anybody. It's not like that money's really going to hurt them. Tristan Thompson's making like $9.5 million. Maybe he's worth around, I don't know, 5, 6. Like, it's not that much of a negative. So Tristan Thompson doesn't matter in this deal for me. It's White for Nesmith for San Antonio, and I like that move for them being in a rebuild situation. They're basically getting younger. I like it.
And for the record, I know you just said they probably won't need the cap space, but I think this sets the Spurs up to have about $70 million in cap space this year. So look out for them if they wanted to sign 2 big free agents. But here's the thing that a lot of people will look at a trade like this and be like, oh, Tristan Thompson sucks. Why would you do that? You know? He doesn't matter in this trade, like you said, and you have to have contracts that work. But he's a $9 million expiring contract, so it's not that big of a deal for the Spurs to take him on. Like I said, even with him, they still have lots of cap space. So you just have to have throw-ins like that to make the trades work financially, and that's all that was. It's not like the Spurs set out to trade for Tristan Thompson, and he's a big part of the deal. He was just a means of an end to get a prospect they wanted.
Yep, agreed. This was an old trade that we already talked about. Okay, here's the next trade. I don't know why that one was there. You got Jared, who took over the Mavericks because Bread went MIA, just like last year. Still haven't. Have you heard from him, Eric?
Yeah, he said he was camping and didn't have service. Unfortunately, he couldn't let us know. Maybe he should have
not tried to have joined the mock off season if he knew he was going camping. I don't know.
He thought he would have service, but it's still something where he should have let us know that he was going camping before he did it. But
yeah, that makes sense. But Jared took over the Mavericks. And his first move, Eric, is to trade Maxi Kleber, however you want to say his name, Maxi, Jalen Brunson, Dorian Finney-Smith, and 2 lightly protected future first-round picks. He also took off the protections off his 2023 first-round pick to New York. I think New York traded that somewhere else. I don't remember. But basically, so took off the protections, made their 2023 pick they owed New York completely unprotected, and traded 2 future firsts, as well as Kleber, Brunson, and Dorian Finney-Smith for Jonas Valanciunas. As I said, everybody is overpaying. And this is an overpay for Dallas for Memphis. This is another really good trade for Jackson. He is in the top 3 at this point in terms of mock offseason GMs, because he has gotten great value in every single trade. He traded up into the second pick. I mean, Jackson is just on an absolute roll. Shout out to Jackson, man. He's been doing a great job, and he got great value for Jonas Valanciunas. What's funny is he has Miles Turner on the team because he got great value in a trade where he was able to trade for Miles Turner. So he has Miles Turner on the team. Who knows if he keeps him, because he could try and flip him. Basically, Jackson is just playing a game where he's just getting value out of every trade. And we'll see how long it goes, but he's getting value. And it's a great trade for Memphis, considering their logjam of bigs. They get back Jalen Brunson to be a guard off the bench. He was one of the best six men in the league this past year. Crazy efficient, 52% from the field, 46% from 3. 18 points per 36 minutes for Brunson, as well as 5 assists per 36 minutes. A solid, maybe even a good defender. I think Valanciunas' value. Valanciunas is really, really good. All right, really underrated. I thought Jonas Valanciunas' value was Brunson and a first. Memphis overpaid. They had to match salary. They gave up Kleber, who's a good 3-and-D big. They gave up Finney-Smith, who's a good 3-and-D wing, and they gave up an extra first-round pick and took off the protections off another pick. I thought it was an overpay for Dallas and a win for Memphis.
Yeah, and so obviously Luka needs some more talent around him. I don't mind, targeting a guy like Valanciunas, who, like you said, after the Miles Turner trade is definitely available. But Jackson has to get rid of one of those bigs. Like, he has too many bigs on his roster, right? So this is a case of I don't see any other team matching this kind of offer.
Yeah.
So I think to just go in there, and they talked for like, it seemed like they were in a trade call for like 40 hours before this actually
They
happened.
talked about this trade for 4
Yeah.
days, I heard. Not
And see,
not not like the
and
entire 4 days, but 4 days in a row.
and here's the problem. So Jackson doesn't really value Kleba and Brunson and Finney Smith like someone else might. So that's when you, in my mind, need to get a third team involved. And if you're not getting the value back, because Kleba still has some value in this league. Like you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
Brunson is coming off a good year. He probably had some trade value to another team looking for a backup point guard or maybe a younger just point guard on a rebuilding team. And Finney Smith is a decent like wing role player, so you could have probably gotten some assets for that, made it a 3-team trade, and just given Jackson one first round pick. Maybe I don't know if Jackson does that, but then there's still a lot of big men available, and I as much as I like Jonas, I don't think they should have overpaid for it.
Yeah, I agree. And they're in a position where Dallas might have a little bit of cap space, or they'll have their full mid-level exception. Keep those guys and go out and sign like a Nerlens Noel or something. Go out and sign a center.
Mm-hmm.
Go out and do something. You know what I mean? Go out and do something in free agency. Sure, Nerlens Noel isn't as good as Jonas Valanciunas, but you still have all your picks. You still have those 3 players. Or you don't have all your picks, but you still have, the 2 first that you gave up in this trade. You still have Kleber. You still have Brunson. You still have Dorian Finney-Smith. You can still use those guys in trades. Maybe go out and trade those guys for a forwards. Go find a team that values those guys as they should. Because, like, if you take out, Brunson or one of the picks and Jackson doesn't do this deal, then he's not valuing what you have as much as he should be. You know what I'm saying? So that's where you have to draw a line. Like, okay, I'm giving up too much value here. Offer less value, and if the GM doesn't take it, go to a plan B or a plan C. And that's what I talked about earlier this stream. It seems like some teams didn't really have a plan B or a plan C, so they overpaid for kind of their plan A. And that's what I think this trade ended up being for Jared. Yeah, I just feel like you could have found a team that would have valued those guys more and gotten back just as good or maybe even a better player at a forward spot or a guard spot. They could use help pretty much everywhere. And then you go out and sign a center in free agency, and you're looking a lot better, in my opinion. Or you keep those guys, go out, sign a center in free agency, and you're still looking better. So,
yeah, this is the lesson. Yeah, you don't give up, because I've heard this so many times in these mock-off seasons. Well, he wouldn't do it for anything less than that. Well, okay, well, then you say no, and then you say, I'm going to go try to find a different center. And as the mock-off season goes on and Jackson still has Jonas and is wanting to get rid of him, and no one's offering even close to what you're offering here, then maybe you can get him for much cheaper later on. But there's no point in just overpaying for someone right off the bat. Like, at least I would try to fill your roster. I forgot what stream that was, but we're talking about the Blazers, what they should do with backup center, like a couple streams ago. And I mentioned like 4 or 5 guys that are on basically minimum contracts that I think would have been good fits for Dallas as well, and as Portland. So, yeah, in my mind, I would have just done that. And if Jackson ends up getting an offer that's close to this, then you just say, well, at least I wasn't the one that overpaid. But yeah, I would have done something differently. But I mean, I'm not going to kill him for it. I mean, I understand the thing, but I do still feel Porzingis and Valanciunas, I don't know how that's going to work out either. So whether he holds on to Porzingis or not, or what he does with him will be very interesting.
Yep. So let's talk about this trade before we get to the blockbuster of the mock-off season. There's a couple trades that happened that we didn't throw in, like San Antonio traded Trey Jones to Philadelphia for Paul Reed. Like, I think what's the point in even talking about that? But you also have San Antonio and Philadelphia on a different deal. Philadelphia gets Jakob Poeltl, and San Antonio gets the 28th pick and gets an $8.1 million trade player exception, which they'll have a ton of cap space. They'll probably renounce that trade player exception. So it's a 20th pick for Jakob Poeltl. Eric, I don't really like this trade for either team, because Poeltl is worth more than the 28th pick. Mm-hmm. But if Joel Embiid is healthy, Poeltl's only going to be able to play like 12 minutes a game for Philadelphia. You cannot play Poeltl with Embiid.
No.
They're both just centers. They're not power forwards. They're like, you don't want either of those guys as the power forward. You don't want Poeltl and Embiid playing next to each other. So, like, value-wise is good for Philadelphia in terms of, like, you get a player worth more than the 28th pick, in my opinion. I think Jakob Poeltl is extremely underrated. One of the best defensive bigs in the league, and people don't seem to really realize it. But you can't play him a whole lot. You can't play him enough. If Embiid gets hurt, then obviously this trade is maybe worth it. But, like, if Embiid gets hurt, you're not going to win anything anyway. So what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's a situation where San Antonio, I think, didn't get back enough value for Poeltl, and Poeltl kind of fit a rebuild. He's still decently young. He's been in the league a while, but he came into the league very young. They didn't get back enough value for him, but then Philadelphia gets a guy who you can't play with Embiid, so he's only going to be able to play like 12, 13 minutes a game if Embiid is healthy. So it just doesn't really make sense for both teams.
Yeah, I agree with that. Kind of a weird trade. I will say, like Trevin's saying, it's just kind of insurance/load management. You could not play Embiid quite as heavy minutes when you have a competent backup. But yeah, I agree with you. Poeltl's probably worth a little more, and I don't know. Spurs are obviously just trying to get draft picks because Thomas loves his prospects and stuff like that. So I'm sure he's eyeing someone in particular with that 28th pick that'll kind of surprise us, but he really likes.
Yeah. I mean, if Valanciunas can get back Brunson Kleber, Dorian Finney-Smith, and 2 future firsts, I feel like Poeltl should have been able to get a little bit more than the 20th pick. Mm-hmm. Like, Valanciunas is better, but Poeltl is a little bit in that same mold, just can't shoot like Valanciunas can. But, like, defensively and, like, some of the little things that Valanciunas does, Poeltl also does. And Poeltl is cheaper. So, like, really good value, in my opinion, for Philadelphia. And Chris Stevens is the Philadelphia GM. He says, nobody was taking picks without a player back, so I had to get value. He's so underrated, and I can trade him for future value at the window, potentially as a part of a combo trade. Here's the problem. Like, if you try and trade him at the trade deadline, and he's only playing 12, 13 minutes a game, his trade value goes down. And you probably can't get back what you gave up for him. So it's almost like you'd have to flip him instantly, but it's like, if that's the case, why didn't you guys work out a 3-team trade? You know what I mean? So that's the part that kind of has me confused there.
There's a possibility he's trying to pull a Trevin from last year.
What's that?
I don't want to ruin it for him, but yeah.
Trevin was the Blazers last year.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
He had to do some crazy maneuvering to get DeLon Wright because he didn't fit into. Never mind.
Okay. I mean, if that's the case,
I'll tell you.
Let's just say this. Yeah, I don't even. Whatever he does, like if he's able to flip Jakob Poeltl for something, then this ends up being a really good trade. If he's able to get good value back for Jakob Poeltl, because he got good value back for the 20th pick by getting Poeltl. If he's able to flip Poeltl for more good value, then all of a sudden this sequence of events becomes like an A or a B, right? Yeah. In itself, in isolation, I'd say it's like a C-. But obviously it's dependent on what he pulls off. So like if he didn't trade Jakob Poeltl, then I don't like this trade for him. If he's able to get good value back for him, then I really like the trade for him. So that's what I'm going to say on that. So obviously, we're going to grade everything after the entirety of the offseason and look back and see like what teams traded out and what teams got back and then what players they picked with their draft picks. The draft is tomorrow, by the way. We're going to be doing that on the main channel. We're going to do the first round. Not the second, the first round, though, of our mock off-season draft. So that'll be fun. So yeah, obviously, it's a situation where I just don't think Poeltl makes a ton of sense as the backup center. He's too good to only play 12, 13 minutes a game. And Embiid should be playing 35, 36. So
Understandable.
Anyway, the last trade we're going to cover is not that one. Is the blockbuster, Eric. The blockbuster of the mock offseason. Essentially, you have Washington trading out Bradley Beal and getting back... They trade out Bradley Beal in a second. They get back Jaylen Brown, Peyton Pritchard, Tyler Hero, and a 2021 unprotected first-round pick from Boston. I love this trade for Washington. Let's just talk about Washington, and then we'll get to the other teams. I absolutely love this trade for Washington. They're entering rebuild mode, but they get a Bradley Beal caliber player, in my opinion, back for Bradley Beal, who's younger. And then, like, I would have, if I'm Washington, I'd trade Bradley Beal for Jaylen Brown straight up.
Yep, me too.
They get back Peyton Pritchard, Tyler Hero, and an unprotected first.
Mm-hmm.
This is after they trade Russell Westbrook for a first, 5 seconds, and like $34 million in savings.
Yeah.
Washington has done a phenomenal job so far. I don't know if Satvik is in this stream, but he's done a phenomenal job with them. This was a phenomenal trade for Washington.
Yeah. Let me just say this. There was multiple other first-round picks unprotected originally in this deal. Yeah. There was multiple pick swaps, all that kind of stuff as well, all going to Washington. So Satvik was actually going to fleece the other two even further at one point. But yeah, so in my mind, a Beal/Brown/Butler type trade is pretty fair for all teams involved. I can understand maybe the Celtics having to give up a little more for a Butler, but in my mind, it should have been pretty close to even, and it's still a little skewed towards Washington winning this trade in my mind. But I can definitely see, if you're just talking about those three, this trade kind of makes sense for all three teams, with the exception of maybe Miami. Yeah, I thought it was really good by Washington. They get off their two big contracts, and they get a bunch of good young players and pick up a bunch of picks. So yeah, I really like what Washington's doing.
Yeah, so Pat Riley and Brad Stevens were drunk at a bar and tried to give Washington almost the entire franchise for both of them, and ownership had to step in and whittle this trade down to something that made sense for them. So that's basically what happened. But yeah, shout out Satvik, absolute A there. Now Miami trades out Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero and gets back Bradley Beal and Grant Williams. Eric Olson is running Miami. He gave you his reasoning for it, Eric. What was his reasoning for doing this trade?
I believe he just wanted more of a scorer, and slightly younger than Butler. But the main reason was that he believes the Nets are going to be, if healthy, a team that the Heat will not be able to beat in the next couple of years. And so he wanted to get a player that was slightly younger, that fit more in the timeline of a year or two from now being ready to pounce and having the best team. So he's trying to build the Heat to be the best team, say not this season, but the season after that, or in 2 years, which I kind of get his reasoning for. And then also it's rumored that Jimmy Butler is wanting a max contract at his age this summer, which I believe the last year of that deal would be like $50 million or something. So he just wanted to move on from Butler and get the best possible scorer that he could get. And if that was his goal, I guess he did all right. I don't think I would have traded Butler for Beal and given up anything else, including Tyler Hero, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, if he didn't give up Tyler Hero, then I'd say like it'd be a I don't know what I'd grade it, because here's the thing, like I look at this trade, it's just like, why Miami, why? And then I hear his reasoning and it's like, you know what, I get it, like it makes sense, like he has legitimate reason. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's just like, why give up Hero in that? Now I think Hero is extremely overrated, but that's another conversation.
But I mean, it wasn't Eric Olson as GM. He's a different GM than Pat Riley, but this is a guy who they refused to give up in a James Harden trade a few months ago. So you got to look at it from that perspective as well.
Yeah. So I mean, I'd say it's a B minus maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I'd still say it's like, given all his reasoning, I'm willing to give it like a B minus, because like the reasoning makes sense and it sounds like he has a plan. So, given his reasoning, like without any reasoning, I would say this is probably a C minus, for him. So
let me just say this though: if that's your reasoning, like if you want to get younger and be the team that is ready to take over in 2 years, I would have just traded with Boston straight up, and you get Jaylen Brown, Peyton Pritchard, don't have to give up Hero, and get a first-round pick. So then you're sitting there with Brown and Bam. That's a great tandem. And then you got Pritchard, and you still keep Hero. You probably get Grant Williams still. That's what I would have done if I was the Heat. I would have rather just traded straight up with them. But Sopik came in and kind of worked like he was the mastermind behind making this a three team trade instead of two. But that's the direction I would have gone.
Yeah, it's actually now a C minus for me again because I forgot about that. Should have gotten Jaylen Brown instead of Bradley Beal here if that's the plan. And Jaylen Brown fits like Bam Adebayo's like timeline even more and has a longer window. And I think Brown has more years of control than a Bradley Beal. So that's the thing. It's like if you're not successful enough, does Bradley Beal want to leave? That's something you're gonna worry about in the future. And you can get back get back better value. Should have taken Jaylen Brown instead of Bradley Beal. That's the thing, guys. Like this is a message to the Block Off Season members. If somebody comes approaching a 3-team trade and you guys are like into it, it's not against the rules to be like, I like what the other team's offering, I just want to make this a 2-way deal with them. You know what I mean? That's what should have been done here from Miami's end. They should have just been like, you know what, I want Jaylen Brown and Boston wants Jimmy Butler. Why do we need Washington? Why does Bradley Beal need be a part of this? Let's just do it. Jaylen Brown for Jimmy Butler swap and work it out like that.
And also be weary of people who are trying to. I'm not saying this is what happened here, but I can admit I have kind of done this in the past where you're working on a 3-team trade and you're trying to get the best for your team. So you just kind of be like, okay, from your end, are you okay if you're trading out this person and getting back these people without giving like the full trade of what I'm getting back or whatever? So like be weary of that. Ask in a trade and make sure you know exactly what each team is getting, and then analyze that yourself and be like, wait a minute, why are the Pistons getting back like 2 first-round picks and they're only giving up 1 player or whatever? Like that doesn't make sense. Even though you're fine with your end, do the homework, figure out what the whole trade is, and make sure you're getting the best possible value. Because like Tori said, there might be a case where you're like, screw Eric, I'm taking the Pistons out of this. I'm just going to trade with that guy straight up, and that might be better for you. But,
yeah. Yep. So the fact that kind of had Jaylen Brown makes this trade a little bit worse in my eyes. It's kind of it's like the fact that you had some reasoning for it that makes sense that I can kind of agree with, like makes it better. Just should have gotten Jaylen Brown instead. For Boston, they trade Jaylen Brown, Peyton Pritchard, Grant Williams, and a 2022 unprotected pick. They get Jimmy Butler and a 2022 San Antonio second. What's your thoughts on this trade for Boston?
Well, Boston, he keeps telling me he has a plan and that he's in win now mode. I kind of like Butler with Tatum. Like it just kind of gives Tatum like a tough, gritty player that I think that's going to be a good combo. But I mean, I think this is kind of dependent for me on what other moves they make. And then also, I think he gave up I wouldn't have given up that much for Butler. I would have just kept Brown if that's the price it would have taken. But
here's the thing. They did need a point guard. Jimmy Butler can kind of be that point guard.
Right.
Maybe. You're kind of looking at Jimmy Butler, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, and maybe slot in a switchable 3-and-D wing in there. That lineup would have a lot of switchability. So maybe that's the plan, is to like have Jimmy Butler be the point guard. But like the thing is, he can guard 4 positions, and so can Jason Tatum, and Marcus Smart can guard 3 positions. And honestly, for a guard of his size, extremely good at battling inside. So maybe you're okay with him switching amongst 4 positions as well. The problem is Al Horford can guard 4 positions, so you maybe want to try and get a more switchable center. So, like, if the plan is to, like, have an extremely switchable lineup and Jimmy Butler's your point guard, maybe this trade looks a lot better.
They still have Robert Williams, though, so...
They still have Robert Williams, you're right, and he's a guy that can guard multiple positions as well. So, I don't know. This trade is kind of weird on the surface. Value-wise, I think they gave up a little bit too much. I'd give it probably a C- as well, just like I did for Miami. But the thing is, like, Miami would be a B-, just looking at it on the surface, what they gave up, what they got back. But the fact that they could have got Brown and, like, the Boston first, because Boston's only given up what they gave up for Jimmy Butler, which the Miami had, that makes the trade worse. Boston is just from a value standpoint, they gave up a bit too much, so it's a C-. It's a little below average trade. I wouldn't say they necessarily got fleeced, but slightly below average. But the thing is, if they are able to get like the right pieces to complement, like Jimmy Butler being the point, and just get like a super switchable lineup, then this trade could go up to a B.
Yeah, I think he still has a decent sized trade exception for partial of the Fournier it was the Gordon Hayward signing trade last year. So that was a huge trade exception. They used part of it for Fournier, who's a free agent. So that'll be, I don't know if he'll be looking to re-sign him or not, but that's I don't know. I like him going after Jimmy Butler and trying to win. I didn't like how it was crazy over the top how much he was willing to overpay for them, and luckily we kind of curtailed it a little bit. I still think it was an overpay, but luckily it wasn't as bad as if we just let them do whatever they wanted.
His ownership saved him.
Yeah. But yeah, I kind of like just going after a guy like Jimmy Butler. But yeah, I don't know if I would have given up that much for it. So
yeah, I agree. So anyway, that is the last trade. Things have tapered off a bit. I think everybody's kind of just waiting for the draft, and then should have some trades on draft night. For mock offseason participants, you, of course, can make trades with draft picks during the draft. You can trade up, trade down. So definitely, like, I would say, as much as you can, do your homework on some prospects, maybe in your range, or maybe a range you're trying to trade into. Read some scouting reports, find guys you like. Maybe it's a sleeper that you're willing to reach on. Like, that makes the draft fun. Just, definitely try and do a little bit of research on some of the guys so you can kind of get a feel for who you might want to draft. And then when the real draft rolls around, you'll know some things about some of the prospects that will get drafted, and that'll make it fun, just to sit back and watch and not have to worry about what you're doing. You can watch the pros handle it. So definitely do a little bit of research. I've been doing some research. I have the 42 and 47th picks as the Blazers. Might be trying to trade up. We'll see. But there's definitely a couple prospects that I like in that range, as well as in like around the 30th pick. So yeah, definitely just try and have a little bit of a plan for the draft, and you can make trades and just submit them, messaging us, like you normally do. We're gonna be streaming, going live at 7 p.m. tomorrow on the main channel. That's when the draft will start. Eric has the first pick. Jackson has the second pick. Eric has the third pick, so those should go by pretty fast. If you have a pick in the first round and can't make it to the draft, please message me prospect rankings 1 through 30. If you're not there for your pick, I will look at your prospect rankings. I won't look before. Will not look before. If you can't make it for your pick, I will look at your prospect ratings and take the highest player on your big board. All right? So if you can't make it for that stream, I've already had a couple people let me know, and they'll be getting me player rankings 1 through 30. If you can't make it for that stream, just send me a 1 through 30 prospect list. Anything else to cover with the draft tomorrow?
No, just looking forward to it, obviously.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
I'll do my work early and then just sit back and help you get people's picks in.
Yep. We will have a prospect list completed hopefully a couple hours before the draft, 4 or 5 p.m. You can go online and look at prospect lists and see where our players are ranked. But I definitely wanted to have our own, so I've been working on that. I've already filled it in. It's a sheet that is in the Google Docs section, the team sheets section. It's the first sheet, NBA draft. That's what it's called. So I will add maybe their measurements and whatnot, but you can look that up yourself if you're curious. So I might not get around to that. That'll be the last thing I do since it's something you can find pretty easily. So I already have players there listed. I have to go back and see which players are returning to college. So I will have that finalized definitely a couple hours before the draft tomorrow. And have like a list of players that you can draft from. We will determine if players might return or whatnot. We'll probably just flip a coin to determine whether or not they return or stay in the draft, because the actual real date for that decision is the 7th, so 6 days from now. Sadly, it didn't happen before this, so we don't necessarily know with some guys, so we'll have to determine that on our own. But anyway, I think that's pretty much everything to cover.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. So anything left that you just want to say for this stream in general? It's been a pretty long one, almost 2 hours.
We didn't really talk about the advertised change on the jerseys. Storm X is the new jersey sponsor, and to me, it's a big who cares. I mean, if you're upset over BioFreeze being replaced, I don't understand that, but everyone's welcome to their own opinion, I guess. But yeah, I don't think it really matters, and who cares if the company goes out of business or whatever, or if you don't believe in cryptocurrency, there'll be plenty of other places that would take over the sponsorship if that didn't happen. But
yeah, who cares? Why do people want to be outraged over a freaking jersey sponsorship? That's what I'm talking about, guys. I've been talking about how people just want to be outraged, and then I've been talking about that like crazy, Eric. So it was so funny today to see that they had a new sponsor and that was like a cryptocurrency thing, because I literally thought like, is this just the universe trying to prove my point about how people are going to be outraged? Because I just guessed like there's some people that are just going to be outraged over this, and then you have like, I'm seeing like you have this girl on Twitter saying, are the Blazers just trying to humiliate their fans? Talking about the jersey sponsorship. Like, you had people legitimately upset and outraged over the freaking jersey sponsorship. Come on.
Someone blamed Olshey.
It's not even Olshey's decision. Yeah. Olshey, just ridiculous. I don't even want to get into it. I don't even want to rant. It's just people want to get outraged and mad and pissed off. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Anyway, whatever. That's my response to. People have asked about the Chauncey interview. I thought it was good. It was fun to listen to. Not many thoughts on it, but just sounds like the right coach for us.
Yeah, I loved his answers. We both think he's great basketball-wise. I do wish... I mean, I understand why they're not. I do wish they would have used an interview like that to address some of the things that they've messed... I don't know if it was before or after the press conference, but maybe with the backlash from the press conference, just having someone like Brooke ask those tough questions in that setting, I think would have been a good idea. But other than that, yeah, it's basketball-wise, I think it's a home run hire.
Yep, I agree. So anyway, that's going to wrap up the stream. Thank you for watching. If you watched the whole thing, you're a real one. We'll be live again tomorrow. So,
Eric Olson just came in and fast forward or rewind back to when the thing switches over to your trade and listen to that.
yeah. There you go. So that's going to wrap up this stream. We will be live again tomorrow, so lots of streaming this week. We got a video series planned. I want to drop a mailbag. I postponed the mailbag because all the Chauncey stuff went down. So I will have a mailbag coming soon. I'll probably post a community prompt since so much has happened since I last posted the mailbag, and so many questions might be completely irrelevant now. So I will post a community prompt in the community tab of the main channel. So definitely be on the lookout for that, so you can ask your question if you want it answered in the next mailbag. And then I'm going to be doing a video series on potential off-season targets, like Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, Plan D. We'll see how far I get. That'll be a fun video series as we head up into the off-season.
Yep.
So, lots of fun things for July. We'll have the finals covered. We'll talk a little bit about the finals. We'll preview it a little bit as well. So we will kind of touch back in with the NBA playoffs. Other than that, make sure to follow us on Twitter. I'm at ToryJonesYT. Eric's at HoopsJock. And then if you haven't subscribed to the main channel, we're almost at 5,000. We're going to have to do something to celebrate 5,000. I'm not really sure yet. If you have any ideas, feel free to DM me or message me on Discord or email me, blazers@res@gmail.com or whatever. Message Eric. Got to do something special to celebrate 5,000 because that's definitely a milestone that the main channel is approaching on. So anyway, thank you for the support and thank you for tuning in with us. I hope you have a good rest of your Thursday. Anything left, Eric?
Well, thank everyone for watching. Have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, sir. See you tomorrow. Until then, have a good night. As always, peace out. Go Blazers.